We wanted the opportunity to talk with city officials regarding just what Effingham's status is regarding water supply. And so we had the opportunity to talk with City Administrator Jim Arndt and Director of Public Works Steve Miller about that matter. And fellows Jim or Steve, whoever, what is our status? How good a shape are we in as far as water supply?
I'll let Steve lead off.
We have a sufficient source of water at this time, but we never know how long the drought's going to go. We did receive a rain last night, so hopefully we should schedule another interview, Greg. Maybe that will trigger another rain, but in seriousness, you know, we are really hoping people to be reasonable with their water usage. We have 3 sources of water. The Little Wabash River is our first source, Lake Sarah, and then the Holland Regional Water System. And that water comes from the Kaskaskia River fed by Lake Shelbyville. Right now the river is low, below our intake, so we are pulling water from Lake Sarah. And we'll continue to do that until, you know, such point we do have to pull from Holland, which is our 3rd source. Back in '54, when we had the drought, the city ended up purchasing the water system and built Lake Sarah for conditions like this. And with that same leadership, starting with Mayor Utz and continued through Mayor Lang and Mayor Gillen Water, along with you know, the economic development team at that time, which can, you know, Todd and Hank and Dale Fitzpatrick. Through that development, we were able to, the city was able to get another resource of water, which is very important, and that was finished up in 2006. So we do have that source, but we still caution usage just to be reasonable, such that we can sustain ourselves if this goes for another 6 months or even into next year.
I think people, some folks, could have a misunderstanding that just because we had a good rain, problem solved, everything's happy and glad. But this has been a long time getting to this point, so it's going to take a while until we can remedy it.
Right, right. And we will need to recover from, you know, these conditions. And typically, you know, we see the drier months, June, July, August anyway, so the soils are affected first, and we see that through the crops, and then the creeks, and then eventually the groundwater. So it does take its toll as time goes along.
Yeah.
I think the long-term forecast, I'm hopeful that people are positive and will remain positive, but the long-term forecast does not bode well for, you know, for the future climate that we're going through. The rain last night was fantastic. You know, I got a email from the mayor, talked about how he did some home improvements and it caused the rain to come, of course, outside. And my response back to him was, "I'm glad to see the rain, but it knocked out my internet and my phone and my cable." You know,
Yeah.
so, but like Steve said, I think the important thing for us to realize is that one rainfall here, one rainfall, you know, a week from now or a month from now, isn't going to be what we need to be able to ensure that the drought is over. And we got to make sure we exercise good judgment, make sure we exercise, you know, common sense. You know, the water that we're using is valuable, and we need to conserve it. And we always preach water conservation from the city's perspective. Whether that means, you know, maybe not washing your car, or maybe not taking that drinking water and putting it on your grass. You know, exercising some good judgment. There's a lot of communities that weren't fortunate enough to be blessed with the foresight that our leaders have done in the past. And I give credit to Steve and to Matt Hortenstein as well. I know they worked hard on getting this Holland Regional Water so we can actually access that, which was just a good thing for the city. Like I told Steve today, when I look at the debt service and you have a $4 million debt payments you have to pay back for something like that, it makes you kind of cringe. But when you realize that you're paying that $4 million back to make sure that your business is in town, to make sure your residents in town, the hospital, all the people that come to town in the hotels, as we mentioned before, they can turn the faucet on and water comes out. You know, so that makes that $4 million quite worth it.
When you think about the different resources that Steve made reference to, we see that some people are under water restrictions already. Can you talk a little bit about the dynamics of that? Why are some people under restrictions and we're blessed apart from the fact that we have a backup and then a backup to the backup?
Right. Well, it really goes back to, looking at the long term, and I think for the city, there were people still around from '54 that remembered that. It's hard to implement those things, and it takes a lot of courage as far as a political leader to go get those sources, and it's expensive to do. So as time passes on, you tend to just kind of get along and keep going along. But to take those steps is important. The city did. There are other, groups and entities that are, maybe a little bit shorter than the city. IEPA, Rural Water, those types of people, the state's encouraging people to be interconnected, to work together in case, not just during droughts, but if you have mechanical problems or, problems of that nature, so that people are interconnected, they can help with this resource, and so I think that's working well in our area too,
Yeah.
with our other water users.
That's the thing, the other water users is the point I needed to make. The
Right.
fact that we aren't just talking the City of Effingham as far as water availability, because the City of Effingham supplies water to a number of other entities as well.
That's correct.
That's exactly right.
We also supply Lake Sarah, Teotopolis, Hartville, EJ to some extent, although they have grown through a treatment plant through the same Holland Regional Water System.
Mm-hmm.
And that board was put together kind of for that reason. And it has evolved into EJ being able to build a plant also, and we're interconnected with them. So it's worked well, and hopefully we can continue that. And hopefully we can continue to, look forward in, the problems that we may incur like this.
And we don't want to minimize the issue at all either, even though we have taken steps in the past to make sure that we are in good standing in drought conditions such as today. I believe we're in good standing for drought conditions if it continues on until next year or the year thereafter as well. But we do talk about it frequently each week. We've been meeting for the last 2.5 months on this same issue in-house, saying, okay, where are we at, where we're standing. We're constantly monitoring what's going on around us, what's going on within the state, as well as what's going on, of course, locally, to make sure that we're prepared. And I keep telling Steve, I want to make sure that we're proactive and not reactive, just like we have been in the past. We've been proactive as far as what we've done to ensure that we're going to have water capacity and availability. We want to make sure that if we do get to the point where we have to impose some restrictions, that we do it proactively as well. We're not, behind the 8 ball saying, okay, we should have shut it down a month ago type thing. So we constantly look at it, and we'll continue to look at it as well.
IEPA continues to monitor weekly, so at the water treatment plant, the operators are reporting lake levels, things of that nature. So I know at the state level they are also monitoring things closely, and we'll just have to continue to do that and see when this drought ends, hopefully soon.
Very good. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
City Administrator Jim Arndt, Director of Public Works Steve Miller for the City of Effingham. And I'm Greg Sapp.